Welcome to the Antique Corset Museum. I'm Melanie Talkington, curator and owner of all of these beautiful treasures here. We're in the back of Lace Embrace Atelier, where we specialize in corsets and lingerie, but most specifically corsetry. So I was told at a young age that Dolly Parton wore corsets to achieve her wild hourglass figure. I kind of became a little bit obsessed with it and asked all the women in my family what a corset was, what it did, and nobody could actually give me the answer to what an actual corset was, other than it made your waist smaller, and not the reasons why women wore them and why they were so popular and what they looked like and all of those burning questions. I finally got my first antique corset in 1997. It was a great study piece. I took a pattern off of it and I made a copy to try it on so I could see what it felt like to wear an actual Victorian corset. At that time I was making wedding gowns, and then brides were looking for foundation garments to wear under their wedding gowns, and they said, "Oh, you make corsets, can you make me a corset?" And I realized if I could buy an antique corset and take a pattern off of it and sell a copy of it, that I would be able to have more money to buy more corsets. So now we have over 350 antique corsets in the collection. So this exhibit that we have in our museum right now is on miniature mannequins and shop displays. They were only meant for retail use. They weren't a common retail item that was for sale to the public, so it's harder to find these things. The reason they did smaller versions of mannequins was because they would take up less space than a full-size mannequin. The nice thing about them was that they miniaturized even the lingerie that they're wearing. So the lace details, the satin, all of the stitching, the ruffles, everything is just miniaturized. This is the very first mannequin that I ever got in an antique shop in Seattle, and she was $25. I was so thrilled because she's just like elegant and glamorous, but even though she's wearing dungarees and a plaid shirt, and the person in the antique mall was like, "She's kind of creepy." I'm like, "She's gorgeous." And then these are little dressmakers mannequins that you could buy patterns for them, and then you could learn how to sew by making little miniature dresses. And I did make these two outfits on these mannequins, and they were harder to make than a full-size dress. So, but I guess it's a way that you aren't wasting fabric, so that's why you make a miniature version. This is Camp, which is famous for their fan lacing corsets. So people often associate bullet bras with the 1950s, but it was in the 1930s that you start to actually see more of a pointy natural shape. So this is a 1940s photograph here. So you can see it still would be what you would consider a bullet bra. This is a Life form-fit bra with its box, and on the shop display I ended up getting all three of these pieces separately, so I was excited when I could put them all together. And then this is a Naturaflex shop display form that shows the different bras, and then all of these bras are dead stock. They have their original tags and they're unworn. So there's a Hollywood Bassarette with the whirlpool stitching and the sheer nylon cups and the lace. So that's like your typical bullet bra. And then there's another yellow bra with the scallops underneath the bust. They're quite firm to help lift the bust up and give that youthful figure. These are some original corset boxes with their corsets in them. The boxes are always much prettier than the actual corsets inside. So the corsets inside are very plain, gray cotton, lace, whereas the illustrations are always very beautiful. And this is a Dr. Warner's health form. There's two forms here. This was probably a reproduction statue. It says 1877 on the back of it, but I've seen quite a few of them for sale, so that's why I think it's a reproduction. This one might be original, and they're made to look like statues, and then you can see I've blown up a trade card in the back, and it has the statue and the man and the woman's trying to pull her husband away from looking at this curvy lady wearing her Dr. Warner's Coraline health corset. So it's from about 1877. This corset I did make for her, and it's a copy of an antique corset, miniature corset that I found. This is an original 1890s corset. It's American. It's black cotton with little blue wheat embroidered in the fabric. It's quite pretty. and then it has some stiffening at the bust. It also has a hook at the bottom of the bust to keep it together, which is unusual, and they always came out with different patterns and different styles, each company, to kind of make their product stand out over another product. These cabinets are an exact copy of one that had gone up for auction. I've only ever seen 2 original antique corset display cabinets. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to successfully win that auction, so I had these cabinets recreated for our museum. This is a French corset that was exported to the United States. It was sold in Philadelphia in a department store, and it's made out of a cotton eyelet. It was probably a bridal corset, but the eyelet is breathable, so it's a nice summer corset as well. And it has a really pretty silk moire bow on the front, and beautiful lace and flossing. It's a straight fronted corset from about 1900, and then there's a corset cover in silk. And then there's a bow at the front, and the bow is to kind of stop having a division between your breasts, because you want to have that big monobosom Gibson girl bust, so that's why you often see bows and stuff at the front of the corset. And then this is an original WB Elastine Reduso corset on its original form. So this was found in an attic in the United States. So when they're sitting in a shop window and they get a lot of sun on them, the silk starts to shatter, and then it gets put up in the attic, and then mice run around and the roof leaks and things like that. So they start to get a little worn, but it tells their own story. It's quite unusual to see they're using elastic in a corset from about 1910. And then these are more kind of 1910, 1912 corsets on original corset forms. The corset forms are really hard to find because they're molded cardboard. They'll get damaged because they lose their shape if they get too wet. So to find ones in good condition is pretty rare and unusual. And then this is a Spanish corset, and it has these buckles here, and the buckles are for attaching garters. I love this corset. This is probably one of the newest ones in the collection, and it has irises woven in the fabric, so that's a lovely little corset from France. When salesmen were going from town to town, full-size corset would be a lot to carry, so they made miniature corsets that were exact kind of copies with little miniature busks in them and bones and eyelets and everything. The attention to detail and the quality that they took the time to make the busks and smaller and the eyelets smaller and all the stitching smaller and the lace trimming and the scale of the fabric. And they even had labels in them, and they would carry these miniature samples around with them, town to town, and then they could show the product and take orders from all the general stores and things like that. They just have a lot of charm in their own right because they are miniaturized versions, and I guess that's why I did this exhibit on shop displays, because I wanted people to understand why we have this corset forms that we reproduced in our shop and why we're using those things in our shop, because I want people to kind of experience a time travel when they come into the store, and by seeing the original miniaturized display versions of things, it helps them to kind of maybe appreciate our store and what we do and our passion and the history that's associated with everything that we do in our branding and our product. Thank you so much for coming down, and I hope you come by and you can see our exhibit. It will be changing at some point soon, so it's your last little bit to see all the miniature mannequins and shop displays we have here, and maybe try on a corset, see how they feel.